Welcome to Healing from Within. I'm your host, Tony Valen. You can contact me, tony@tonyvalen.com, or visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Follow the show on Twitter @TVHFW. Also, the show is available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search Healing from Within with Tony Valen. Joining us on today's show is Naviae Seastar. Naviae is a psychic, intuitive, empath, and pagan priestess. You can learn more about Naviae Seastar by going to enchantederth.dunedin.com. Dunedin is spelled Dunedin. So enchantederth.dunedin.com. Or you can get a hold of her by calling the store 727-216-6594. Like Enchanted Earth on Facebook. Just search Enchanted Earth. You can also get more information on Naviae at naviae.com. That's N as in Nancy, A, V as in Victor, IAE.com. And you can know more about the products she has to offer at archermooncreations.com, ARCHERMOON creations.com. Naviae, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. So we're going to start the show just like I do with all my other guests, asking you the first question. What are your gifts and how did your journey begin?
I would say that my gifts are empathy. I'm a really strong empath and clairvoyant. And my journey began as long as I can remember. My first memories are being a little girl and having spirits visit me and just knowing other things that most people around me didn't seem to know. So I guess I've always been this way and pretty spiritually oriented all my life.
Wonderful. Now, were you raised among parents that were spiritual, or did this just come from you, or how did this happen for you?
My family, my dad especially, was extremely religious. He was really Catholic. So I had gone to 12 years of Catholic school, and that was practiced in our home and in our family. But that really didn't work for me. I tried really hard to connect to the Catholic pantheon, Jesus and Mary and so forth. And it just felt kind of empty and I couldn't connect. My grandmother on my mom's side and all of her sisters, she comes from a big family, they're all telepathic, clairvoyant, and have dreams that would come true. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with like more Italian sort of folk magic, but on Christmas Eve, one of my great aunties would take the water and add olive oil and do a prayer over it to see if you had been cursed, and then she could remove the evil eye from you. So that was like something to look forward to on Christmas Eve as a little kid. It was around. My dad's side, his sister was a medium and did seances, but that wasn't something that I was really around or was exposed to. But later on in life, I found out about her being a medium. So I thought that was really interesting that on both lines there was some mysticism and clairvoyance.
In the introduction, I introduced you as a pagan priestess. Can you tell the listeners about that?
Well, I follow an earth-based spirituality, and a lot of what I do as a pagan priestess. So pagan just means of the heath, of the country. So country dweller, someone that connects to nature. In say pre-Catholic Rome, for example, because it's Latin, pagani is the root of pagan. So the country dwellers were just, living their life on their mostly agrarian cycles, feasting at the harvest and so forth. So Christianity or Catholicism came later to the outlying villages. So they were pagan. They were of the heath. They were of the country. So at first, being Catholic was kind of like the in thing in the city. So that's where the word pagan came from, and almost like with a negative connotation as well. But I'm reclaiming it, and a lot of other people are reclaiming it as just being connected to the earth, following a cycle of nature and trying to live in harmony with nature and the world around us. So what I do as a pagan priestess is honor the cycles of the moon and the sun. There's 8 major Sabbats that I acknowledge and have rituals and priestess or join in, just a fellow practitioner of paganism. And then other rituals that I'm called to do, such as blessings for children that are being born or marriages, rites of passage and things like that. Sometimes house blessings and cleansings, exorcisms, which is not as much fun.
Yeah. What is the difference between a paganism and witch? Or is there a difference, or there's no difference?
Being a practitioner of witchcraft
Mm-hmm.
just means that you work with spells and herbs and stones and magic. And you could be a pagan. I mean, people who are Native American are pagan because it's a polytheistic, earth-based spirituality. And people who are Hindu also are pagan, but they may or may not do witchcraft or work magic. I would say that I'm a pagan witch.
Okay.
Yeah. To me, being a witch also means that you're like kind of psychic or powerful or tuned in somehow in your seeing. Yeah, being able to like, connect with the natural forces and work with them to cause change. And that's neutral power. I choose to use it for good. I choose to use it for blessings and healings. But again, it's neutral. So really, it's up to the person working that magic, how they want to focus. I believe that what you put out comes back to you. So I want to have love and goodness come back to me. So I'm not going to do negative magic.
And I do believe that, I guess it's a matter of energy, and energy travels in circles. So you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. What you put out is what you get back. That's just a universal law.
Yeah. On the EnchantedEarth.Dunedin.com website, you're listed as a medicine woman and as a mystic. Why don't you tell us a little about that?
Well, I feel being a mystic means connecting to source or what you believe God to be through like altered states, not necessarily with drugs, just by going into trance state. Sometimes trance is brought about through drug-induced drugs or natural things like shamans all over the world use ethnogens to get into a trance. But the shamans I've worked with and the mystics that I've studied with, it's not necessary. So people hear altered states and they right away think, oh, you're doing some kind of, hallucinogen. Sometimes, but not necessarily. It's more about getting into an altered state of awareness to reach a place of, say, alpha consciousness, a state of mind where you can be in the nonlinear. The conscious mind sort of steps aside and you can be present with other possibilities of reality.
Awesome. What do you mean by the alpha? What does that exactly mean?
4 states of consciousness in our human mind is, say, beta. So when we're walking around, talking, doing our day-to-day lives, we're in beta field, beta state.
Okay.
And then when we're in alpha, it's a little bit slower. When we're, say, watching TV or eating a snack, driving, we're kind of on autopilot. Mm-hmm. We're not really so engaged, and it's just sort of automatic. That's the alpha state that we're trying to get to when we're doing healing, ritual, tapping into the mystic. You're in that sort of like liminal space.
And what were the other 2 states of mind? Alpha, beta?
Theta is deeper than alpha, but also can be conscious. There's a theta healing that takes place. You can train yourself to learn how to be a theta healing practitioner. I've taken some of those courses, really fascinating work. It's a little bit deeper, and you can actually be asleep in theta. And then delta is a deep sleep or even coma. So those are 4 states of consciousness.
Very interesting. So the delta would be something like hypnotic state, so to speak?
Probably that would be theta. I would think delta would be you're sleeping or even coma.
Oh, okay.
Usually unconscious in delta, to my knowledge.
What is an Akashic record, and how do you help people with that?
The Akashic records are the record of the soul since its inception. So it's believed that there is keepers of the records that we have been, always have, always will be. And there's a record of every thought, action, and deed in this Akashic record. I was trained by the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and I use a sacred prayer to get into the Akashic records and ask for information on someone that is petitioning to get access to the records. It seems that the keepers only give us what we need to know. Sometimes people want to know about their famous lifetimes, or usually not, but sometimes you get people that are just curious, and I will see literally a door slam in my mind's eye, and they won't tell me. They'll just tell me information that's appropriate for this person. We can't really be given free access of all our lifetimes. We wouldn't be able to stay present in this one. That's why we have this sort of keeper that only shares the appropriate information of, usually it's something that's coming up. There's some issue, there's a relationship, there's a trigger, there's an irrational fear, there's a something that's really interesting, and why do I feel like I have to go to Spain? Why do I, have such fear around heights, for example?
Right.
Or what is it with this person that I just can't let them go? And then we'll consult the records and, oh, okay, there's a past life here. And usually it's pretty profound, the connection and the information given, yeah.
And once you make that connection and you discover that, well, for lack of a better word, issue, once you discover it and deal with, you discover it, how do you deal with it, or does it automatically just cure itself because you've acknowledged it?
It seems that just the awareness and sort of putting all the pieces together seems to help, and it sort of just sorts itself out in time.
And the one question that I wasn't planning on asking, and I hope you don't mind, I remember talking to someone else that works with you, and they told me that you had done many travels and gone many places. Can you tell us a little about your travels and what you've learned and discovered?
Yeah. Well, I was married and was living in Chicago. And 1999, I had a tornado come through my camp where I was camping at a festival with my husband at the time. And I knew that it was some sort of sign. And I had consulted a Santeria priest, actually. Really long story, full of synchronicities and holy cow moments. But at the end of this experience, after a few months of counseling and working things out, I decided to leave my husband, and I ended up giving away everything I owned and sold my car and just had a backpack and wandered from place to place, being guided by spirit. I had some sort of inspiration I wanted to learn about the Mayan astrology, and synchronicity led me to Hawaii, where I found a Mayan teacher staying on the land that I was led to visit. I could go on and on about it, but Hawaii was the first place, and ended up traveling all over the West Coast and British Columbia, Mexico, Central America. It was just a wonderful journey, and I learned about primitive skills and weaving, and visited the Mayan people in Guatemala and Chiapas, Mexico. It was really a very liberating time and a wonderful time of trusting the universe that I would have what I needed. There were so many amazing medicine people that I learned from and experienced. Formally, informally, I had Choctaw medicine women up in Mount Shasta area teach me about herbs and plant spirit medicine. I had a Cincinnati shaman. It's so funny because I tell people about the shaman I studied with, and I say he was a white guy in Cincinnati. They expect, someone from, the Huichol people. And he was just this really super powerful psychic man that had studied shamanism, and just so many amazing people all along the way.
How wonderful. Yeah. And I can imagine it. It must take a lot of, a lot of guts, a lot of, you had to really be brave to do what you did, because that's amazing that you would just decide to change your life so drastically.
It was, and it was actually even harder to come back to society. When I came back to the mainland, quote unquote, it was really hard for me to sort of integrate back into Western culture again. Living in a house, driving a car, having a job, that sort of thing. But I felt very called back, so I came.
Yeah, well, I feel that we all have, your soul leads you to what you need and what you need to know and what you need to function. And once you've learned it, you have to share it. And I think that's exactly what happened to you. When you do an Akashic Records reading, what is the process, and what would the person expect? Like if I was to come to you and say, can you please help me with my Akashic Records? What would be involved?
Well, it usually works best if there's an issue or a question. Like I had mentioned earlier about someone having some irrational fear or some relationship issue or something at hand that they felt was urging them to maybe look deeper. That's the best kind of reading because I have somewhere to start from, and then we can kind of open from there. But sometimes people don't have any questions, and we just open them and see what comes. And still, that's very effective also. Well, it's like me watching a movie in my head and explaining to you what I'm seeing. That's really what it's like. The client is just sitting there, sometimes asking questions, sometimes not. They can record it if they'd like to, and I'll just describe in the best detail I can about what I'm experiencing. And again, because I'm empathic, even through the Akashic records, I'm getting feelings and I'm getting sensations about what this person's like. Last week I had this woman come who was just curious. She didn't have any specific question. And I saw her with this other man and explained the dynamic that I was being shown between them. And she said it was just like her husband now. All the things I was telling her about what these two people were like together was just like her current husband. And it was really helpful for her to see sort of like the it's like we're not, sometimes we take it to the next level in the next lifetime. So it was powerful. And sometimes they'll jump around. And in this case, they took me to a lifetime way before that current one, and they showed me her being the man and being just the opposite of what she is now. And it was sort of like for her to understand both sides of being the dominator, being the submissive, so to speak. Do you understand? So like we have to experience both sides to come to balance, perhaps, in this soul's case. And it was really awesome for her to understand where these different tendencies and feelings had come from, because a lot of it was irrational and didn't really pertain to this lifetime, what she had been feeling.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, this is Tony Valen, Healing From Within. You can contact me, Tony@TonyValen.com, or visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Follow the show on Twitter at TVHFW. The show is also available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search Healing From Within with Tony Valen. We're talking to our guest, Naviae Seastar. Naviae is a psychic, intuitive, empath, and pagan priestess. You can get more about Naviae and learn more about her on EnchantedEarth.Dunedin.com or call the store she works at, Enchanted Earth, 727-216-6594. Like Enchanted Earth on Facebook. You can also get more information on Naviae and what she has to offer at naviae.com, naviae.com, and more about the products she has to offer at archermooncreations.com, ARCHERMOON creations.com. Now, Naviae, I wanted to ask you, do you have any tools that you work with, or is this just intuitive coming from you? Or, in other words, do you work with crystals, with cards, or how do you do your work?
Primarily I work with tarot cards. I also work with a pendulum. I also work with runes and oracle cards, but primarily tarot.
And are they the ones that resonate more with you, tarot cards and all the other methods, modalities?
I would say so, yes. And it was just my first divination tool when I was 18.
I also know that you're listed as a crafty candle witch and chandler. What does that mean?
It just means that I craft my own candles. I make spell candles. I make candles by scratch from all natural, non-toxic palm wax. The paraffin that most candles are made from tend to be, if people who are sensitive, they tend to be a little bit caustic to them sometimes. And it's a petroleum product, so it is sort of off-gassing some chemicals. And I'm sensitive intuitively to energy and everything, but I'm also sensitive to chemicals and the food I eat and such. So I like to use palm wax candles. That's what I make also. And I use herbs and essential oils. And the whole process is a ritual for me. I'm praying the entire time that I'm making candles for people. So say that someone had a family member that was ill, I would do a healing spell candle just for them. I would take their name and their birthday and chant that over the wax as it's boiling, and add the herbs and add the oils and make a little prayer or incantation or spell, what have you. And I seal it with like a little wax seal, that when you open the wax seal, like old school letters, I just love that on parchment. Sealing it with wax just feels like old time to me. So, and a little bit of magic. So when you open the seal, a little bit of enchantment is released at that point, and then you can read the spell and light the candle. So it's really personal. They're not all like that. I do have like more of like a generic line of, health, prosperity, love, good energy, housewarming, etc., purification. But then if someone has something specific that they want, like a more personal touch on, I'll make an individualized candle for them.
So it would be like an intention candle, so to speak.
Yes, it is. It's an intention candle.
Wonderful. And what is the term chandler? What does that mean?
Chandler just means that you're a candle maker.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You are a Reiki master teacher. Tell us about that, how you learned it, where you learned it from, and how it has helped you and how you help other people.
Sure. Reiki is universal life energy. It's something that flows through all things, and we have the potential to be Reiki healers, everybody, and we're already wired for it. And they say that when you receive an attunement, it's like having the electricity in a house that's already wired, turned on. I first got my Reiki 1 attunement in Connecticut in 1996 by a lady named Janet Bradford, and then really felt immediately a whole lot different. I started having my hands heat up. I started having even more intuitive knowledge, especially around people's illnesses. And then I ended up going to massage school and got the rest of my Reiki certifications, master teacher, while I was living in Chicago. And then in 99 got my master teachers. And when I did massage, it was so helpful having Reiki, because you're tuning in as a healer to the one heart, the one consciousness, the one healing energy in the universe, instead of taking it from a personal level, so you're not being depleted. So giving massage, doing healing, even just being present with people, you're not feeling drained. As an empath, as a sensitive person, I tend to avoid, say, malls and big parties and things, because being around people tends to drain me, because I have like a battery going on that, whether they know it or not, I'm giving off energy and they're taking it. And it takes a lot of energy and work to kind of shield and hold my own self in. So I'm kind of protective about where I go and how I mingle. But then being exposed to the public doing massage, something like that, it's very intimate, and you're there in the healer capacity. So having something like Reiki is just priceless, that you can leave the session and feel like you've given them what they needed, but you also feel like, like you're actually recharged, because energy is flowing through you from a universal source.
That sounds very powerful, to have all that energy flowing through you. And I never realized that it's the energy coming from universal source, which definitely would help the Reiki master healer work. I know that at present you're not teaching classes, but I know this coming year you will be teaching classes. Can you tell us what type of classes, and give us a little description of what you have to offer?
My plans are for the coming 2015 year to do a Witchcraft 101 class. In the past, I've done 13 lessons back-to-back, like 13-week classes. So that covers the history of witchcraft, working with the elements. What is a witch? Witchcraft versus Wicca, witchcraft versus paganism. What are the gods of witchcraft? What are the gods of paganism? What are the Sabbats or the high holy days for witchcraft? When to do spells and when not to do spells. How to protect yourself, because opening up and connecting to the forces around you, they look back. And what if you're a sensitive person to begin with? How do you protect your home and your own auric field? How do you cleanse yourself? How do you cleanse your home? Working with herbs, crystals, visualization, things like that.
And so you go into the various crystals and various herbs and whatnot that people can use to protect themselves?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful.
And There's also classes on candle magic and how to make the most of burning a candle. Because, when you say to people, do you know how to work candles? They just say, oh yeah, I light it. And there's a whole lot more going on with the magical aspect of candle magic than just lighting the candle. And sometimes that works too, just lighting it with your prayer. But there's a lot more involved to it if you wanted to get deeper with the candle magic. The last class, the 13th class, is a self-dedication. That's completely optional, but I would be there as priestess for them if they wanted to self-dedicate for a year and a day to the pagan path. And that's been really lovely in the past. I make a beautiful altar and people come in ritual clothes, and it's really nice to be supported by community and be witnessed. I did my dedication by myself in my bedroom when I was 23 or whatever. So
yeah.
It would have been nice to have a community at that time, but so I'd like to give people that option now. Some of the other classes are Reiki classes. Attunement Reiki 1 and 2 will be available, and also psychic self-defense, and probably some candle magic classes that are standalone that aren't part of the 13-week witchcraft classes.
And you also teach the intuitive development classes. Would that be for beginners or people just starting, or somewhere in the middle? Or
it'll probably be a mix, I would think.
Okay.
That's how I've done it in the past, just sort of like tapping into your intuition wherever you're at, and then maybe breaking it down to a beginner intermediate level after like some of the initial classes. I think some people don't realize how tuned in they are.
Yeah, that is true. And what is the cost involved with the classes?
As far as I know, the classes that are taught at Enchanted Earth are $20.
Okay.
And they range from about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I guess it depends. So probably check the website closer to when they're being offered, sometime in the beginning of the new year.
Wonderful. Part of the services that you do is you also do house blessings and clearings. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Sometimes people have had maybe a loved one pass away in the house, or maybe there's a divorce and the person left feels like they need to kind of get a new start or cleanse. Sometimes there's been a robbery, and sometimes there's just energy that shows up and they don't know why. But usually it's people that feel like their house feels a little off to them energetically. They can't put their finger on it. Maybe they're not a practitioner and they just want someone who's, trained to come and take care of it for them. So it would involve a ritual cleansing with herbs and incense. And I usually make like a fresh flower altar to kind of bring in, new energy. Fresh flower energy seems to kind of, and everything white, that seems to kind of lift whatever funk is happening. I usually, call on my spirit guides and allies to assist. Sometimes I'll call on gods or goddesses, depending on where that person's at. Some people are just open and say, do whatever you need to do. But I will check with them and try and work with their own belief system, what feels safe and comfortable for them, because I can just do it with the elements. I don't have to call in anything else but that. Just work with stones and crystals and flowers and blessed water and that sort of thing. And prayer, mantra.
Oh, yeah. Can you give us an example about a blessing or a clearing that you have done recently? What happened and why were you called?
Recently, there was a woman who her husband travels a lot, and they had a beautiful home that was her sanctuary. And even when he was gone, she felt good about it. And then she started to have weird dreams at night. The sense of someone in bed with her, the sense of someone present in the bed when she woke up. A few times, this is what prompted her to call me. A few times she saw like a dark shadow by one of the walls, really scared her. And I did a divination with tarot before, which I usually do to kind of see what I'm working with, what I'm going into. And she was a yoga practitioner, very spiritual, very clear energy. So I felt like it wasn't her that was maybe tuning into something. Sometimes people, if there's like addictions or depression, sometimes that's like a doorway for darker energy to come through. Not blaming that person, but sometimes that's just the way that it comes in. But this wasn't the case, so I felt like there was something else going on. And she didn't just move in. So sometimes when there's construction, that's another trigger for energies to get disrupted and things to kind of go haywire. But that wasn't the case either. So I went there and got the sense that she had an object that she had purchased, and I think there was some kind of funky energy on what she purchased. So we actually buried it, and she took it out after a moon cycle and said when she reintroduced it to the house, it felt okay. But I suggested that she do that because that was the only thing that felt off to me in the home. Everything else felt really clear, but this one sort of artifact thing had a weird energy on it. So we took that out and we buried it in a cloth and put crystals with it under this big, beautiful oak tree. And then I cleansed the area with sacred smoke from herbs and prayed the whole time. And she was a part of it. She held a white candle and walked the space with me. And then we blessed it with sacred waters that we had prayed over and put herbs and oils into. And I had her go to every door and window and all the four corners and reclaim her house. Say, this is my beautiful sanctuary. This is my space. And I choose what stays here. I choose what I fill this place with. And I want joy and light. We put little tourmalines in the four corners, which I feel is very protective stone to kind of anchor that protective energy. We had the stones do that work for us. And then we sealed it. We walked all the way around the property with salt and had her define her place. And every time I've seen her since, it's been maybe a few months now, and she's just over the moon. Everything feels really good. There's nothing, there's no shadows, there's no weird energy, there's nothing negative left at all. And I really think that it was, her husband not being there sort of left a void, and this energy was, I think, filling that in its own way. It didn't feel evil. It just felt invasive.
Wow.
I needed to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if someone wanted a reading from you or a house cleansing or one of your services, what would be the best way to get a hold of you to request these services?
You can contact me at Enchanted Earth, and they'll get the message to me. I work Tuesdays and Fridays right now, but that might change in the future. But you can always call the store and request a reading with me or request a consultation or a cleansing or whatever is coming up for you. I love doing Reiki healings. We do them at the shop also. It's a hands-off Reiki, but I work with crystals, and because I work with the mystic energy, sometimes I go into a shamanic trance with the client, and I'll receive information more than just giving them Reiki energy. I'll be getting information about messages from their guides or from beloveds that have passed on or animal spirits, that sort of thing.
So sort of like a medium.
Yes. I wouldn't call myself a medium because it's not something that I can at will make happen, but it happens a lot without me asking for it to come in.
Absolutely, yeah. In our last remaining minutes, tell us what's next for Naviae.
Well, I'm actually working on a book.
Wow.
And
good for you.
Yes, it's been a long time coming. It's just sort of like my memoirs coming into more of a cohesive form. I love to write and write poetry and just sort of putting it all together, hopefully as inspiration for some people who are empathic or mystical or spiritual, or and women specifically, sort of like an empowerment for women, but also men too, not just for women. So that's kind of what's in the works for me right now. I'm hoping to travel more, even though I'm pretty settled down in Florida right now. I would like to continue journeying and seeing the world and learning, experiencing more things that the world has to offer.
So when your book comes out, will you let us be the first ones to interview you and we can talk about the book?
I would love that. Absolutely.
I would love to do that too so much. Well, thank you so much, Naviae, for being on the show with us and enlightening us on what you do.
My pleasure. It was really fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Our thanks to Naviae Seastar. Naviae is a psychic, intuitive empath and pagan priestess. You can learn more about Naviae Seastar by going to enchantedearthdunedin.com or call her at the store, 727-216-6594. Like Enchanted Earth on Facebook. You can also get more information about Naviae at N as in Nancy, A, B as in Victor, Naviae.com, Naviae.com, or ArcherMoonCreations.com. That's ARCHERMOON Creations.com. You are listening to Healing from Within with Tony Valen here on Blog Talk Radio, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Contact me directly, Tony@TonyValen.com, and follow us on Twitter at TVHFW. The show is available on iTunes and YouTube. Just search for Healing from Within with Tony Valen. Thank you so much to everyone. Love and light from all of us here at Healing from Within.